She said, "I'm keeping the cat in the divorce. You don't even like animals." The cat was my emotional support animal prescribed for my PTSD. I said, "Well, let the court decide." Then I showed the judge my medical documentation and her text messages about getting rid of the stupid cat. When the judge ruled in my favor. Original post. I, 34 male, am a former Army medic. Did 2 deployments, came back with some stuff I don't talk about much, and got diagnosed with PTSD in 2019. I've been in therapy since. I take my meds. I do the work. Part of that work included getting an emotional support animal, a great tabby cat I've had for 4 years. My therapist wrote the letter, my psychiatrist co-signed it, and the cat has been in my treatment plan since day one. He's not a fashion accessory. He's not a pet I picked up on a whim. He's prescribed. He sleeps on my chest when I can't sleep, which is most nights. My ex-wife and I were married for 3 years. Together for 5 total. She filed for divorce 8 months ago. I'm not going to pretend I was perfect. I wasn't. The PTSD made me withdrawn sometimes. I had bad stretches where I didn't want to leave the apartment. I know I was hard to live with during those periods. But I never raised my voice at her, never broke anything, never did any of the stuff people assume when they hear veteran with PTSD. I just went quiet. And apparently quiet wasn't something she could work with. She started seeing someone else about 2 months before she filed. I found out because her sister told me. Not to be cruel, but because she thought I deserved to know before I got served papers. I appreciated that. It still gutted me, but I appreciated it. The divorce itself was mostly straightforward at first. We rented, so no property split. No kids. We had separate bank accounts, always did. The big assets were her car, in her name, paid off, my truck, in my name, still had payments, and about $11,000 in shared savings we'd built for a house down payment that never happened. My lawyer and I agreed to a 50-50 split on the savings. Clean and simple. Then she brought up the cat. We were doing an informal mediation session, just us and our lawyers in a conference room, going through the asset list. When we got to pets, she said, "I'm keeping the cat." I looked at her. No, he's been living with both of us for 3 years. I've fed him, taken him to the vet, bought his food. He was prescribed to me by my doctor for my PTSD. You don't even like animals. You never wanted a pet. You only got him because your therapist made you. My lawyer put his hand on my arm, which was his way of saying, "Let me handle this." He said, "The cat is a documented emotional support animal prescribed as part of my client's mental health treatment. We have the original ESA letter, updated annually, co-signed by a psychiatrist and therapist. The cat predates the marriage by 1 year. This isn't a negotiable item." Her lawyer looked at her like he hadn't been briefed on this detail, because he probably hadn't. She'd probably told him the same story she told everyone, that I was an indifferent pet owner and she was the one who actually cared for the animal. She said, "He doesn't even take the cat to the vet." "I do." I said, "You took him once?" "For his annual checkup, because I was at a VA appointment. I have every other vet receipt on my credit card for 4 years. The mediation ended without resolution on that point. Everything else was more or less agreed to. But the cat became the hill she chose to die on. That night she texted me, "You're not getting that cat. I'll fight you on this until you give up." I texted back, "We'll let the court decide." Over the next week, she did a few things that told me this wasn't about the cat. She started calling mutual friends and telling them I was using the cat as a weapon and that I was exaggerating my PTSD for sympathy in the divorce. 2 people called me to relay what she'd said. One of them, a guy I'd known since high school, said, "Man, she told me you barely have PTSD and that the whole ESA thing was a scam to avoid pet deposits on apartments." That hit different. Not because a friend believed her. He didn't, but because she knew about my diagnosis, my nightmares, my worst moments. She'd held me through panic attacks at 3 a.m., and now she was telling people it was fake to win a cat. I called my lawyer and said, "Whatever it takes. I'm not losing him." Update 1. 3 weeks between mediation and our first court date. She used every single day. First, she went after the narrative. She told her family, her mom, her dad, her sister, 2 aunts, that I was weaponizing a mental health diagnosis to take the cat out of spite. Her mom called me, not to ask my side, to inform me that I was disgusting for using PTSD as a legal strategy. I said, "It's not a strategy. It's a diagnosis." She said, "My daughter took care of that cat more than you ever did, and you know it." I hung up. Her sister, the same one who'd warned me about the affair, texted me and said, "I'm sorry. I know the cat is yours. She's spinning this and I can't stop it." I told her I understood and that I didn't expect her to pick sides. She said, "I'm not picking sides. I'm just telling you what's happening so you're not blindsided." Here's what was happening. My ex was building a case that she was the cat's primary caregiver. She started collecting evidence. She dug up photos of her holding the cat, feeding the cat sleeping on her lap. She went to the vet and requested copies of any records with her name on them. There was one from that single visit she'd made. She apparently also asked 2 of her friends to write statements saying they'd always seen her caring for the cat and that I never seemed interested in the animal. My lawyer told me not to worry. He said character witness statements about pet care from friends of one spouse are basically wallpaper in family court. Judges see through them instantly. But he also told me to start organizing my evidence, because even if her case was weak, I needed mine to be airtight. So I did. I put together a folder. Not a petty screenshot album, a real, organized legal file. My original ESA letter from 2020. The annual renewals. A letter from my therapist specifically stating that the cat was an integral part of my PTSD management and that removing the animal could cause significant psychological regression. My psychiatrist wrote a separate letter saying the same thing. 4 years of vet receipts, all on my credit card except the one visit she'd made. The adoption paperwork from a shelter, which had only my name on it. My name on the microchip registration. And then I added the texts. See, my ex had a habit of texting me complaints about the cat. Over 3 years of marriage, she'd sent me dozens. I scrolled back through our entire message history and pulled every single one. "Can you clean the litter box? I'm not touching that thing. Your cat threw up on my shoes again. I swear to God. I'm so tired of cat hair on everything I own. When are you going to train this animal to stop knocking stuff off the counter?" And the crown jewel, a text from about 8 months before she filed, during a fight we'd had about apartment costs. "Honestly, if it weren't for the stupid cat, we could get cheaper place. Sometimes I wish you'd just get rid of it. Get rid of it." Her words, in writing, with a timestamp. I printed every single one. Then, she pulled her dirtiest move. About a week before the court date, she came to pick up some of her remaining things from the apartment. Books, a kitchen appliance, some clothes she'd left. I let her in because my lawyer said I had to allow reasonable access to shared property. While she was there, she spent about 10 minutes in the living room packing a box. Normal stuff. After she left, I noticed the cat's carrier was gone, and his vaccination booklet, and the bag of prescription food I'd just bought, the special diet his vet recommended. She took the cat's stuff. Not the cat. I made sure he was in the bedroom with the door closed. But his things. Carrier, booklet, food. Like she was building a prop closet for her primary caregiver act. I texted her, "You took the cat's carrier, his records booklet, and his food." She responded, "Those are shared marital items. I have as much right to them as you do. They're for a cat you told me to get rid of." No response. I bought a new carrier that afternoon. Replaced the food. Requested duplicate vaccination records from a vet. And I forwarded her text about shared marital items to my lawyer, who said, "This is actually helpful." She's claiming ownership of cat supplies while simultaneously having texted that she wanted the cat gone. Judges notice contradictions. The night before court, I couldn't sleep. Not because of anxiety about the hearing, because my PTSD doesn't take nights off just because I have court in the morning. The cat was on my chest, purring, doing his job. I put my hand on his side and thought, this animal has done more for me than most humans. And someone who called him stupid wants to take him to prove a point. Not happening. Update 2. Family court is nothing like TV. It's fluorescent lights, bad coffee smell, and a judge who's already heard 30 cases that week and has zero patience for drama. Which, as it turned out, worked entirely in my favor. Her lawyer went first. He presented the argument that my ex had been the cat's de facto primary caregiver during the marriage. He submitted the photos of her with the cat, the one vet record with her name, and the 2 friend statements. He argued that since the cat had lived in a shared household, it should be treated as shared marital property and divided accordingly, meaning awarded to the spouse who could best demonstrate a caregiving relationship. My lawyer let him finish. Then he stood up and started with the ESA documentation. He handed the judge my therapist's letter, my psychiatrist's letter, the original prescription from 2020, and the annual renewals. He explained that the cat was not a pet acquired for companionship. It was a medical accommodation prescribed as part of an ongoing PTSD treatment plan for a combat veteran. The judge read the letters, took his time, then looked at my ex's lawyer and said, "Was your client aware this animal was a prescribed emotional support animal?" Her lawyer hesitated. My ex whispered something to him. He said, "My client was aware of the designation but believes it was informal." My lawyer said, "Your Honor, I have the co-signed letters from a licensed therapist and a board-certified psychiatrist affiliated with the VA. There's nothing informal about it." The judge nodded and said, "Continue." My lawyer then presented the vet receipts. For years, every visit, every vaccine, every bag of prescription food, all charged to my credit card. He presented the shelter adoption paperwork with only my name, the microchip registration with only my name, and then he presented the texts. He'd printed them on full sheets of paper, highlighted, with dates. He read 3 of them aloud to the court. The one about not wanting to touch the litter box. The one about wishing I'd get rid of it. And then the big one. "Honestly, if it weren't for the stupid cat, we could get a cheaper place. Sometimes I wish you'd just get rid of it." My ex's face went white. She looked at her lawyer like he was supposed to object, but there was nothing to object to. These were her own words from her own phone. The judge looked at my ex directly and said, "Ma'am, did you send these messages?" Her lawyer tried to interject. The judge held up his hand and repeated, "Ma'am, did you send these messages?" She said, "Those were taken out of context." I was frustrated. Everybody vents about pets sometimes. The judge said, "You told your husband to get rid of the animal that was prescribed for his PTSD. Is that an accurate characterization?" I didn't mean it literally. The text says what it says. My lawyer then made his closing point. He said, "Your Honor, the respondent is claiming primary caregiving for an animal she has, in her own words, called stupid and asked to have removed from the household. The petitioner has 4 years of veterinary financial records, sole adoption paperwork, sole microchip registration, and medical documentation from 2 licensed professionals. This isn't a custody dispute over a pet. This is an attempt to deprive a veteran of a prescribed component of his mental health treatment." The judge ruled in my favor. He awarded me sole possession of the cat, stated that the animal was clearly my property predating the marriage, and noted that the medical documentation made the matter unambiguous. He also noted, and I'll never forget this, that the text messages raised concerns about whether the respondent would have provided appropriate care for the animal. In court language, that's a polite way of saying she would have gotten rid of him the second she could. My ex didn't look at me when the ruling was read. Her lawyer started packing up before the judge was even finished talking. On the way out, she walked past me in the hallway and said, under her breath, "This isn't over." I said, "It literally just ended." The judge said so. Update 3, final. It's been about 5 weeks since the ruling. Here's how things shook out. The divorce finalized 2 weeks after the cat hearing. The $11,000 in savings got split 50-50 as agreed. She kept her car, I kept my truck. The judge signed off on everything without issue. Legally, we're done. But the fallout from the cat hearing had a longer tail than I expected, mostly because my ex could not stop talking about it. She told her version to anyone who'd listen, that I'd manipulated the court using my veteran status, that I'd weaponized PTSD to win custody of an animal, and that the whole thing was proof I was controlling and vindictive. She told her family, her coworkers, her friends. She posted a vague story on her Instagram, one of those text on black background things that said, "Well, the system rewards manipulation over genuine love. Some people will use anything, even their trauma, as a weapon. I didn't respond publicly, didn't post anything, didn't even subtweet. But here's the thing about narratives built on a lie. They collapse when someone asks even one follow-up question. Her sister was the first crack. Her sister, who'd been quietly supportive of me throughout the divorce, finally pushed back during a family dinner. She told me about it afterward. Apparently my ex was retelling the court story, painting herself as the wronged pet mom. And her sister said, "Didn't you text him about wanting to get rid of the cat?" My ex said, "That was venting. Everyone does that." Her sister said, "You also called the cat stupid." Multiple times. The judge literally read the texts in court. My ex said, "Whose side are you on?" Her sister said, "I'm on the side of not rewriting history." That dinner apparently ended early. Then her friends started getting the full picture. The sympathetic friend statements she'd submitted to court. The two friends who'd written that she was the primary caregiver found out that the judge had essentially dismissed their statements and that the text messages had been the deciding factor. One of them called my ex and said, "You asked me to write that letter, and you didn't tell me there were texts of you calling the cat stupid? You made me look like a liar in a legal proceeding." That friendship is apparently on ice now. Her mom, predictably, doubled down, called me one more time about a week after the finalization, and left a voicemail saying I was a disgrace and that I'd used the military to bully a woman in court. I saved it, forwarded it to my lawyer for the file, and didn't call back. My lawyer said it wasn't actionable, but worth documenting in case she ever tried to make trouble. The thing that surprised me most was the reaction from the guy she'd been seeing, the one she'd started dating before the divorce was even filed. Apparently, he didn't know about the cat saga until after it was over. When he found out the full story, that she tried to take a PTSD support animal from a veteran, got caught lying in court, and then told everyone the system was rigged, he pumped the brakes on the relationship. Hard. Her sister told me, he said, "If she'll lie to a judge, she'll lie to me." I don't know if they're still together. Don't really care. Now for the honest part. I won the cat. I won the case. But I didn't win anything else. I'm a 34-year-old divorced veteran living alone in a one-bedroom apartment with a gray tabby who doesn't care about court rulings or text receipts. Some nights are good. Some nights I wake up at 2 a.m. drenched in sweat, and the cat is there. And that's the only thing keeping me from spiraling. I'm not on some victory lap. I'm just trying to keep my head above water. The $5,500 from the savings split went to legal fees. Almost all of it. Divorce isn't cheap, even a simple one. I'm back to building from zero. My truck still has 18 months of payments. My therapy is covered by the VA, which is the only reason I can still afford it. But the cat is here, on my chest right now, actually while I type this, purring like a little motor. For years of 3 a.m. panic attacks, and he's never once left. Never once decided I was too broken, too quiet, too much work. That's the thing nobody talks about with emotional support animals. It's not some loophole or a scam or a strategy. It's the fact that when you're sitting on your bathroom floor at 4 in the morning because your brain convinced you you're back in a place you never want to be again, a 13-pound cat who doesn't understand any of it will walk in, sit on your lap, and just stay. She wanted to take that from me. Not because she loved him, because she could. And the court said no. I don't know what my ex is doing now, and I don't need to. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to therapy on Tuesdays. I'm working my job. I'm paying my bills. And every night, a gray tabby parks himself on my chest like he owns the place. He kind of does.